I told you guys we were going to do something different today, and here we are with the Lodge Odge College Football Collage. And I've got my good friend Ari Wajnberg here with me, and Ari is the author of this Lodge Odge College Football. All right, first of all, you got to tell us, what is the Lodge Odge?
Lodge Odge was a nickname that I got by making one of the greatest blocks in Savannah Christian football history. And the name just stuck with me all the way through. It was a derivative of on something out of Pee Wee's Big Adventure. And
Yeah,
it just stuck with me throughout my entire life since high school.
yeah, the Large Marge reference.
Precisely. Exactly.
All right, so it's the Lodge Odge, the College Football Collage. Now, the beauty and the brilliance of this is, and I've only been getting it for a couple of years, but you take a theme, and it's not just a random theme. It's a theme that is actually related to what's going on in college football. Do you remember what the theme was last year? Because I don't.
The theme last year was it was clever devices that we've had throughout history, and some of them were the automobile or the television set or feminine hygiene products. It depends on where your conference sits, is where you were placed, but it basically applies to all of the college football teams within that conference.
All
So.
right, so
Um,
what are some of the other themes that you've chosen over the years? You've been doing this for 19 years.
We've been doing it for 19 years. We've had different foods. We've had different houses from Game of Thrones. We've had
Oh.
different countries. We've had different rock bands. So it
Communicable
covers the
diseases.
communicable diseases. It's just whatever hits my fancy, and every conference is fitted into into a category, and thus every team is fitted into a
All right.
category. It's kind of
A
fun.
lot of a lot of people can pick winners and losers, but I've never seen anybody combine this much thought and creativity and knowledge of the entire spectrum of college football. And so to that, I got to say, props to you, my friend.
Thank
And
you, I mean, everybody can pick the winners and the losers in the SEC and the ACC, the Big 12. Who really goes after the MAC or
yeah,
the Sun Belt or Conference USA or even the AAC? You got to do it all. It's a
yeah,
beautiful ecosystem. It's a
yeah.
changing ecosystem, which brings us to this year's theme. But you got to look at the whole thing, the thing in totality, because college football is the greatest game in the world.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so that just takes us to this year's theme. And are you ready? This year's theme. And by the way, if anybody out there wants to get this, all you have to do is drop me a note at info@flippingamerica.net. Info@flippingamerica.net and say you want the college football collage. I'll send it to you. It'll be worth your time to read it. All right, Ari, what's the theme for this year?
The theme for this year is adaptability and evolution. If you look at the last couple of years in college football, we've literally had the asteroids hitting the earth. So you've got Oklahoma and Texas leaving out of the Big 12, which is now going to become the Big 8, but then they're going to have four more teams coming in, so they're going to be the natural Big 12. And then this past a couple of months, you've seen USC and UCLA, the founding members of the Pac. What was it? It was a Pac 8 at one point.
Yeah.
Now going into the Big 10, which is going to become the Big 16. So cataclysmic changes. You've got members of the AAC moving into the Big 12. You've got members of Conference USA moving into the AAC. All these different adaptations that are having to happen in order for certain teams and certain conferences to survive. And that's what the beauty of this year's collage is talking about how different conferences are trying to survive or just, not surviving.
Yeah. I'm getting it up on screen here so I can kind of follow along with you as you go. All right, we've got maybe 3 minutes or so for each conference, and so you've picked an animal for each conference, and so that animal is some sort of testament to its adaptability, since that's the theme for this year. So let's start at the top. Let's take 3 minutes. Let's do the conference, the animal, the reasons why the animal, and then the winners and losers. Ready, set, go.
So you look at the Mac. The Mac really hasn't adapted that much over the last 10 years. They're kind of like a lungfish. The lungfish evolved about 1 million+ years ago, and then all of a sudden, they stopped evolving, and so basically they live in very slow moving, stagnant water, kind of like the Mac. I mean, and if you think about it, it's kind of sad because the Mac at one point was the cradle of coaches, including Woody Hayes, including Bo Schembechler. But I digress. The Mac is not really adapting; they're just kind of surviving. So, in line with that, for this year's winter, we're going to have Northern Illinois, only because they're getting everybody else back, but nobody else is. In the East, Miami has some people coming back, but
Th-
everybody else is really mediocre.
This is Miami of
So
Ohio.
Miami of Ohio, Red Hawks, not the Miami Hurricanes.
Okay, all you
We'll talk
college,
about that.
pick'em people sitting there at home thinking, yeah, well, just I can pick winners and losers too. How many of you knew that Northern Illinois had everybody coming back? I didn't. How many of you care? I didn't. But there are a few fans of Northern Illinois that care, and Ari does.
I care because it's all part of the college football ecosystem.
All right, Conference
Um,
USA.
Conference USA is another one of those that's been poached, like the Black Rhino. And that's the theme for the Conference USA, the Black Rhino. Although they are making other little black rhinos for next year. They're going to get some other little rhinos to replace UAB, FAU, Charlotte, and all the others that are leaving for the other
I
conferences.
guess you could call
Um,
that reproducing in captivity or something.
they're basic, yeah. It's basically reproduction in captivity. Although it's funny, I'm picking UAB to win in their very last year in the conference, and you talk about adapting. Bill Clark, who was their long-term coach, who brought them back from the brink of death. This program was dead,
Yeah.
and he brought them back, and he had to leave due to health reasons earlier this year. UAB is going to give the conference a big kiss on the cheek and a kick in the butt on their way out the door. Um, North Texas, yes, the Mean Green will be the second loser in this year's conference championship. So kudos to UAB for surviving, but they're moving on to bigger, better things.
Now, the other thing that Ari does with all these conferences is he picks the ones that are going to the good bowls, the okay bowls, and the no bowls. And he's got some snarky comments about that too, and some of the teams that are in there. We don't have time to get the.
We'll save that for a couple of choice ones.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
On to the Mountain West.
Yeah.
So if you think about the Mountain West, at one point Buffalo were all over the place. They got hunted into extinction. Now they're back, and
Except
now
now we
they
have to
may
call
be
them
getting,
bison.
yeah, bison, buffalo, same damn thing. But if you think about it, the Mountain
Listen.
West was the symbol for ruggedness for a while there, but now, especially with the cataclysmic changes that have happened in the Pac-12, they could get poached fairly significantly over the next couple of years. But as it stands right now, fairly strong conference. San Diego State will win. They've got some talent coming back, but Brady Hoke's has enough talent built up over the last 3 to 4 years to actually have enough depth to win the conference. I will say this: is that Air Force has got a bunch coming back, and I like their chances of being that dark horse. We talked about actually before Boise State at one point. You and I have had conversations about them
Yeah.
before. They're a conference that's kind of in free fall right now. They had the worst year that they've had in since 1998. So unfortunately, our coach at Auburn left, and now they're kind of in a free fall. Unfortunately, so
Yeah.
moving
Yeah.
on.
And some people were talking about Hawaii making some waves this year, but I think that what happened
Nope,
last Saturday shut that down.
nope, not going to happen. Timmy Chang's got to take the whole damn thing down to the studs.
All right.
Um, on to one of my favorite
The
conferences.
Pac 8, 10, 12, now 10 again, or soon to be
To
10 again.
Yeah, the monarch, and they are the monarch butterfly, which unfortunately is now endangered because the milkweed which the monarch butterfly larvae feeds on, the milkweed territory is starting to decrease. Unfortunately, in the Pac-12, most of the administrators and other folks have been eating weed for the last few years, and they've watched their conference really go out of the way of prominence. They've got a couple of games early this year that if the representative from the Pac-12 doesn't win, and that's I'm referring to Oregon specifically, if they don't at least show out against Georgia, they're going to have some problems being relevant this year. Interestingly, monarch butterflies usually fly to Mexico and to California in order to escape the winter. With the case of the Pac-12, you've got two California teams that are flying towards the winter to go be a part of the Big Ten, which is going to become the Big 16 here shortly. But I just think it's interesting that in order to maintain relevance, your two biggest draws are moving into the Big Ten.
Yeah, you remember back when Big Ten first added Penn State, and we all called it, the Big Ten plus Northwestern.
Yep.
But they haven't been 10 for many, many years.
Many years they've got a branding problem, and once all this stuff shakes out, hopefully you're going to see some of these teams actually, some of these conferences actually sign up for what they actually are.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
yes,
think they just want to be called the Big.
yeah, the big,
Now, okay, so
the,
your overall
the
champ,
Midwest.
your overall champ
Go
in the
ahead.
Pac-10, you've got Utah.
I've
Uh,
got Utah.
I think they're going to
Kyle
beat
Whitting.
Florida.
Yeah. Oh, please. We'll talk a little bit about Florida as one of those teams that won't be in a bowl this year.
Yeah,
They got a long road to hoe, but
I think
Kyle
that's the
Whittingham's
nature of
really
it.
built a big, nasty football team who's capable of beating maybe not the best teams in the major conference, but definitely shaking out the mid and lower tier teams in those conferences with relative ease. Um, Oregon's not going to win this year. They just got too many question marks across. Although Bo Nix is coming in there, he may have a good year, but I think Danny Lanning's going to be a long term good coach.
Well, yeah, I think so too. They've got some good receivers there, and Bo can be a good quarterback. It's just his inconsistencies kind of plagued him. And
Good Bo, bad Bo. I wish him well.
yeah, I do too. He's a good kid, but I don't think he ever figured out Georgia, and I don't. And he's got less weapons to work with this coming week that he's ever had.
Yep. And like I said, that's one of the games, the barometer games. I'm looking at the big Pac-12 to
All right.
see if they're actually going to be prominent. Sun Belt Conference. Nobody figured a few years ago that they would actually become a multicellular organism. They're actually I categorize them as a chimpanzee, and for many people who are asking why, the chimpanzee is actually evolving faster than the human, believe it or not. The Sun Belt is a conference where people are begging to go now. You're seeing ODU, you're seeing Southern Miss, and several other schools actually go in. They used to be the gateway into big boy football. Now the Sun Belt Conference actually is big boy football. So kudos to the folks in the Sun Belt Conference for adapting to the situation. I still see Coastal Carolina, the Fighting Mullets are going to win again this year. I have no idea how their coach has not gone on to another program, but God bless for staying in Conway, Arkansas. And then is Troy's my second team coming out of the West. For those football fans of the Sun Belt in Atlanta, look out for Georgia State. They've been
Yeah.
building momentum for the last few years.
Yeah.
They've got a pretty good football team now.
Yeah. They do.
Damn near took down Auburn last year at Auburn. They've got a pretty good football program
Right.
going right now. So well done, you guys.
Ari, American Athletic Conference.
American Athletic Conference is adapting like the gray wolf. Gray wolf was also almost extinct, like a couple of other conferences. But you know what? They've gobbled up some of the other lone wolves to make a stronger pack. They've got some of their stronger wolves leaving for the Big 12 in the case of UCF and Houston, but they've got other folks coming in next year to replace, and they're going to be just fine. The lone wolf is not successful. They are seeing success like no other of the conferences outside of the Power Five. They had Cincinnati going into the playoff for the first time for a Group of Five conference, so kudos to them. But I don't think Cincinnati's gonna make it this year. Houston's gonna be your champ this year in
Yeah,
the
should be.
AAC. UCF, similar to Houston, they lost less on defense than Cincinnati did. Is going to be your second team there in
Yeah,
the AAC.
but I do want to say I don't think that everything at Cincinnati had to do with Desmond Ritter. I think Luke Fickell is the thing, and he's still there.
Luke
Uh,
Fickell is still a thing, but you got to remember they had two first rounders coming off of that defense. It
yeah,
was a lockdown defense.
I understand that, but I believe that they became that because Fickle can develop players, not because they were highly recruited out of high school. And so
Oh,
Fickle is
no
still
doubt.
there developing players. I think that Cincinnati may be in the running, but I agree with you. Houston looks pretty strong this year. Okay.
And,
Um,
and, and it's and again, it's not because Luke Fickell isn't developing fine football players. It's just I think they're not to that Alabama level where you could just reload every single year. It-
right. That is true. Yeah.
but anyway, I
All right.
digress.
Independence.
The independents. These are like the gray whale. It's interesting. The gray whale population in the Atlantic is thriving. The gray whale population in the Pacific is failing, just like some of the independents. If you look at Notre Dame, if you look at BYU, Army, and Liberty, they're absolutely flourishing. Liberty and BYU are going to conferences next year. Notre Dame is a conference unto its own, and Army is also like that. They can go basically anywhere. If you look at UConn and UMass, they are a mess. It's truly a tale of survival, and some teams as an independent are doing extremely well, and others aren't, and others are finding that they got to go join another group. This is the last year for New Mexico State to be on their own. Um, God bless them when they land in Conference USA. They're going to need the support. I don't think that now one thing Notre Dame's being picked as a playoff team. I don't want to steal my own thunder, but I don't think so this year.
I don't
This is
either.
a year of transition for Notre Dame. They'll still have a great bowl. They'll still finish 9-3 or 10-2, but they are not going to be a playoff team this year.
Well, the two teams that I think are perennially overrated are Notre Dame and Ohio State. Um, and I know that very few people will agree with me about that
Really?
about Ohio State, uh, but seriously, when your only standard of comparison is yourself, you always come out looking pretty good. So,
Fair
but
statement, but we'll talk a little bit about Ohio State in a couple of minutes.
yeah, okay,
Got my own theory on that.
all right. The Big
Um,
12 or
the
10
the,
or
the,
whatever they are
the
now.
yeah, the Big 12, which is really 10 teams, um, they are I categorize them as the billy goat. Billy goat is one of the most adaptable animals on the planet. You can go from eating clover to hay to tin cans in 10 seconds. Very adaptable animal. They're very widespread, and they're not only adaptable in their diet, they're very versatile in terms of their domesticated uses, including feta cheese and goat yoga. So yeah, they're having to adapt quite a bit with the new college football landscape. So although it's interesting to see that everybody's got Texas, the ESPN FPI is picking Texas to win. I think they're out of their minds. I think the algorithm is is
Yeah.
is off. In fact, I don't think Texas is going to make a bowl game this year.
Wow, that's bold.
Yeah, it is bold, but Steve Sarkisian's got another couple of years to build that thing
If
before
they'll
he
give him
gets
the
into the
time.
SEC. Yeah, if they'll give him the time, they were a wreck. They've been an absolute train wreck since Mac Brown left, and I think part of it is it's not that they don't have the athletes; it's the lack of toughness that they've been lacking over the last few years, and it takes more than just recruiting in order to build that. I think this year the champion finally Mike Gundy's going to break through. Oklahoma State they'll pass the eye test within the Big 12. We'll talk a little bit more about what's going on later on, but I think they're going to win the Big 12 this year. Baylor will also be in there for the championship game, but I think they've lost way too much to compete. Oklahoma, they've got quite a bit of question marks, not only at the quarterback level, but they've also got some question marks throughout the team. I think Brent Venables is going to be a really good coach,
Yeah.
but he's got some things he's got to solve before
Yeah.
they get there.
I agree. My only quibble with you there is I'm actually picking Baylor to win this conference, but I
Six is half a dozen, one or the
yeah
other. I like Dave Aranda is a great coach.
yeah
He's building a team that's got that iron chain mentality to it. But yeah, anybody who's picking Texas this year to win, I think you're fooling yourself.
right.
Um,
Okay, ACC.
ACC Sharks, similar to the Independents. There are some Sharks that are doing really really well. Some Sharks aren't doing so well, but nevertheless, ACC is one of those conferences that has adapted extremely well. If you remember back during COVID, they were the first conference. I always applauded ACC commissioners and staff for saying we're going to go ahead and play football. And it basically drove the rest of the college football world. So kudos to you guys. The you know top to bottom, other than maybe Duke and maybe Virginia or excuse me Georgia Tech this year. I think top to bottom they can compete with just about every other conference. There is one team that's the heavyweight. I I'm picking Clemson again this year. I really find it difficult to say somebody's had an off year when you've won 10 games. Um, yeah, I said it in the collage. I can't wait to see them still try to run the tiny bubble screen with DJ Ukulele. But I think he's going to have a better year. He's going to be faster. He's taken some weight off, so it'll make him more of a dual threat as opposed to just being
Yeah.
a pocket passer.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I agree with you as far as the potential, but I don't think that taking weight off is going to make him a better decision maker. I think that was part of the problem.
Absolutely, absolutely spot on. But I think the mobility will give him a few more options as opposed to being
Yeah,
stuck back there in the pocket. I will say this: when we talked about depth, top to bottom, Miami and NC State, uh, those are two pretty good football teams. So it would not shock me if one of those teams crept up and had a puncher's chance against Clemson.
yeah, yeah. If you asked me for a sleeper pick in the ACC this year, I would say NC State.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave Doran's done a great job of building there.
Okay.
Well, let's
Uh,
go to the big. Let's go to the Big 14.
yeah,
The white-tailed deer. These guys are spread all over the place. You've got these guys in New York, or excuse me, in New Jersey. You got them in Maryland, all the way out to the West Coast now. If you go around anywhere in the United States, the white-tailed deer, because of a lack of
yeah.
apex predators, is widespread.
Coast to
And
coast.
the coast to coast and even coming down south. So the champion this year, the big buck or the big Buckeye in this case, is going to be Ohio State. Um, One of the only teams outside of the SEC that can consistently punch and go toe to toe with those SEC teams. I think Michigan proved it last year. They ain't ready. It'll be interesting to see what Michigan State does this year. They could punch up. Uh, Not saying that the Buckeyes are going to go through completely unscathed, but I think that Michigan State could definitely punch up.
Yeah,
Iowa is head, but not shoulders above everybody else. Again, Minnesota's going to challenge, and PJ Fleck's another one of those coaches, kind of like over in Conway, South Carolina. PJ Fleck's another one that I wonder why he's still at Minnesota. Guy's a hell of a coach, but I think they'll be doing a little bit of punching up as well.
Yeah.
Not to say that Michigan is going to fall off the face of the map, but they're just not going to win the Big Ten this year. It's going to be Ohio State.
Yeah. Well, I know I sound like a little bit of a Southeastern Conference homer when I say this, but I
I
honestly
am
believe,
I'm a
yeah,
homer too.
but I honestly believe that Ohio State is pretty good and can reasonably compete some years with the best of the SEC and can beat most of the SEC. But you take the also rans in the SEC, you take Arkansas, Texas A&M, Kentucky, and Tennessee, and they can beat anybody else in the Big Ten. I think 9 times out of 10.
Strenuously agree with you. It is the toughest league, and this brings us to the apex predator, which
Yeah,
is the SEC, the black and or brown bear. Brown bears, basically, they go out, they eat, they sleep, and they make little bears. Or in the case of when they mate with polar bears, they make super predators. So I mean, they are the absolute apex predator. They've adapted over time, and they just gobble up not just other opponents, but they gobble up other conferences' best teams. Um, it is without a doubt this year. I still think Alabama is the absolute apex predator of the apex predator. They are the biggest and baddest. They do have a weakness. Uh, they have a weakness in the offensive line. Bryce was sacked 11 times in the Iron Bowl last year. Auburn gave everybody the blueprint to go attack them, and that's Georgia didn't follow that in the SEC championship game, and neither did Cincinnati. But Georgia followed it in the national championship game. So Bama is still the biggest and the baddest, but they got a weakness. I think Georgia is going to still win the East. They got a lot of production coming back. Stetson Bennett's coming back. He is a great field general, but I still think they're gonna. I think they're going to have a little bit of a drop off on the defense. It was otherworldly last year. They're going to have good production, but they're not going to have otherworldly presence. And I think they're going to have a couple of losses. Not in the regular season. They'll have one regular season loss. Watch UK late in November where they play in Lexington, and watch possibly early in the season having to go to Columbia, play South Carolina, or having to play in Athens, Tennessee. That's always a weird game, but I think Georgia's going to have 2 losses this year. So,
interesting.
uh,
Interesting.
yep,
That would kick them out of the playoff. I
it would
haven't.
definitely kick them out of the playoff.
Yeah.
But I think Alabama's your apex predator.
Yep.
Watch this year as a continued
Okay.
transition for Sam Pittman in Arkansas.
All
They
right.
are building. They
Yep.
are coming.
Okay. We're almost completely out of time. I got to have your playoff and your champion. Ready? Go.
Playoffs is going to be Ohio State and Alabama, Clemson and Oklahoma State. Clemson's going to beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's going to be a higher seed than they should be because they passed the eye test. Clemson's going to have no problem. Ohio State and Alabama will be a war. It's going to be Alabama and Clemson, and unfortunately, Alabama's going to win. So there, as an Auburn fan, it's absolutely painful, but that's what's going to happen this year. And I haven't been wrong too many times, folks. We'll be happy to send you past copies of the collage to demonstrate that. But this year's champion is going to be Alabama, and hopefully, good luck to the rest of the teams trying to catch them, because I would certainly like to see me be wrong this year.
Okay, everybody, that's the college football collage. You can get it your own copy by emailing info@flippingamerica.net. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Ari. We'll see you.
My pleasure, Roger. Anytime.